we've reached a threshold with AI that I'm afraid has essentially brought us to a point where the consequences are beginning to become extreme. Indeed, I'm talking about life and death. You think I'm exaggerating, but I'm about to show you clear evidence that we've crossed some sort of line, and I don't think there's any way for us to go back. Sadly, we are simply put observers of this new reality because it is beyond you and me. Stick till the end to understand what I'm talking about. So first you have to understand this thing right here, which is Claude Coworker. It is a new implementation, a user experience added to their AI, which allows it to create things such as new files, organize your desktop, essentially do administrative tasks that in the past you would probably have to pay someone for, but now can be fully automated by this AI. In and of itself, it is definitely representing a change of reality, a reduction in productive work any given person can do, assuming it competes with an AI. And so this is not exactly what I'm talking about, but you do have to understand this particular thing. It is very, very cool and really mind-blowing, the fact that AIs can already do this. And keep in mind, this is all just version 1 of these machines. We're still in the initial wave. Okay, I guess you could call it the third or a fourth wave, but the first real wave where it appears that AI is really taking over the world. The crazy thing about all of this is not what it's able to do. So this is one of the employees at Cloud, and I do apologize, Claude. And he is here, promoting the service. But then he's asked, how much of it did Claude Code write? For those of you who are not developers, Claude Code is essentially the best developer we have right now when it comes to AI. It is really mind-blowing what it can do, and it can one-shot essentially create really intricate and complex websites, which in the past you would have to really be a developer to be able to code, and it's outcompeting any other AI. Well, this person replied, the employee replied, that Claude Code wrote all of the code for this new service that they're offering. So essentially, the AI is writing new functionality into the AI. So the AI is recursively improving upon itself. Assuming this is all correct, I haven't verified it. I don't know how I would be able to verify this information, but I mean, it is publicly said. I would be shocked if they're completely lying. And so this is essentially, we've reached a point where AI is improving upon itself. And many people notice this, and it has really stirred the pot. Again, this is not the full picture, but I'm slowly drawing a picture here, which sadly is very shocking. Claude Code wrote all of the Claude Coworker. Can we all agree that we're in at least somewhat of a recursive improvement loop here? So this is very much true. This shocking event has garnered a lot of attention. And the reason it has garnered a lot of attention is because this is completely believable. Claude Code is really, truly that good. It has even given me as a programmer, as a developer, the confidence to create types of, projects, work on projects that I would never, even dare work on because I'm not an expert in 3D and the like. But it is giving me confidence to do that. Some developers, of course, are totally losing faith. They're saying Claude Code wrote 100% of Anthropic's new Claude Coworker in a week and a half. Think about that. A week and a half. In the past, you might be able to do it in a week and a half, but you would need a whole lot of people to do that. And yet here it's all done by Claude Code. Sure, it is led by human beings, but still, we're just observers. We're kind of managers. We're moving up the food chain or the hierarchy of value creation. If this keeps going, software engineers will have no job. And it is true. Not many software engineers want to see this reality, but this is true. Eventually, it'll just be a few people at the top that are managing a whole bunch of AIs, whether we like it or not. But again, this is not the shocking part. This sucks. Right. But it's also very cool. There's also, like I said, I'm working on projects now that I never would have worked on in the past. And that is very, very cool. It's giving me confidence. It's giving me freedom. I can do so many things. But it is also sad to see that the skill that I worked decades on to refine is now a mere, commodity that anybody can use. That is a little bit painful. But I'm not, without hope. But this is when things start to get a little bit creepy, when you add what we just spoke about, recursive, self-improving AI on top of this, right? This is the memo that has been dropped by the Department of War. I mean, the name says it all. They're integrating AI into the Department of War, and these AI will be able to go through unclassified documents, but also through classified documents. So all of the data is given to these AI. And this is a very pressing matter. They're not saying this casually. They're taking it very seriously, and they're announcing it as a key strategic feature moving forward. And this user right here found something very interesting. And I'm only showing him because I want to give credit to the people that are actually, writing this stuff. In this modern era, instead of newspaper, we're pretty much reading Twitter, okay? Twitter, Reddit, things, social media is like this. They're pretty much the modern day newspaper. And he found something interesting. And this sentence right here is shocking once you understand the implication. We must accept that the risk of not moving fast enough outweigh the risk of imperfect alignment. Now, I was so shocked when I read this. Of course, we all know this subconscious, but for it to be said out loud by a department is quite bold and telling of what future we're marching towards. And so I actually went into the PDF. There's no way they actually said this, but there is. Look at this. This is the actual PDF right here from their own website. And it starts off by saying speed win. We must internalize that military AI is going to be a race for the foreseeable future, and therefore speed win. Now, he's not wrong. When it comes to technology, the key component is speed, and we must accept that the risk of not moving fast enough outweighs the risk of imperfect alignment. I want you to understand something. These AI, right? These war AIs, if you will, they will be determining who gets to live and who does not, okay? So life or death will be determined by these AIs. Now, it is already doing that when you think about the drones, right? When you think about the drones and all these things, it's pretty much a human at the end of the day making the decisions, but more and more of the decisions are being handed over to these drones. Now, drones will come in plane mode, but there will probably also be tanks and underwater submarines, etc., right? That will be fully automated. And that's not the scary part. Now, when you think about, combine both of the stories that I just mentioned, so AI that is self-improvement, okay? That is self-improving, and then plus war, okay? This is what we're marching towards. Self-improving AIs that determine life. And on top of that, because of the speed, because of how fast things are moving, because, these AIs, you have to train them, right? These are huge pipelines. When you think about the AIs, you have to pre-train them, and then you have to curate them, and then you have to make them a little bit useful, okay? So there's like different stages when you want to make a model, an AI. Let's say you're moving from version 5, right? The version 5 is what you start with, and then you want to end up with the version 6. And then this process may take, let's say 6 months. Now, when you do this, you have to be really fast, okay? They're constantly trying to find improvements and speed. And so they're not really putting as much effort into testing and the like, because it's not just one company that's doing this, right? They're integrating xAI, I believe, the Department of War. They're also integrating Google's Gemini. And so, all these AIs, they're all racing to be the first, because if your AI is the best, it's winner take all. This is what I'm trying to say. It is winner take all when it comes to these AIs. If your AI is slightly less inferior to mine, you just completely lose. You don't lose a little bit, you lose completely. And all these technologists, they know that, right? All these CEOs. So they're constantly trying to get the best model. And to do that, they have to do it as fast as possible. And so when you think about that, and on top of that, the Department of War is also trying to move as fast as possible. And in the process of making these AIs and adding all the tools, more and more is being done by these AI themselves, right? When you think about, the code writing, so the coding is being done by the AIs, the testing is being done by the AIs, and the reviews, right? The reviews is being done by AIs. When you think about this, you'll see that AI is making the AI, Okay, AI is making the AI, and all they do is pretty much kind of like when you do quality checks, you have this huge belt, right? And there's a bunch of content on it, and then they grab random samples from this, and then they judge the sample, and then it's the result of that is then propagated back into the system as an adjustment. But this is showing that we're essentially losing control and we're moving up the value chain, okay? In the past, this was done by humans, now it's done by AIs. And then the managing, which is currently done by humans, eventually will be done by AIs. And we're essentially, if you come to the logical conclusion, is essentially the whole stack is going to be done by AI. We're pretty much going to say, okay, create a military or create a building or create this or that, and then we just let the AI do the entire process, including the self-verification. And these AIs will sadly be able to determine who gets to live and who gets to die, pretty much. And, that's a very scary proposition when you think about it. Of course, there will always be, I think, a human at the top, because we need to essentially blame someone when something goes wrong. So there'll be a collection of people at the top that are essentially just there to take the blame. That's it. They're just there to take the blame. But as far as the process, it will all be automated with a few, contractors here and there verifying the process, but nobody really understanding what is really going on in its entirety. As scary as it sounds, this is just extrapolating where we are right now, assuming nothing is stopped by the government, that no laws are implemented, that no great disaster happens, which kind of shifts the, what we're willing to tolerate. But assuming that doesn't happen, assuming the AIs are relatively, stable and well at doing their job pretty well, this probably won't be stopped. There'll be nobody who can stop it. Now, I'm not saying here that the AIs, have intelligence, right? I'm not saying they have intelligence or they think or they're alive or anything like that. No, they're obviously artificial, okay? They're artificial beings. They pretty much have parameters or dials, you could say, but billions and trillions of them. And these dials make them behave a certain way. And they're not thinking, they're not logical, rational, anything of the sort. The best way to think about it is, let's say you're trying to train an AI to race, and then you launch a bunch of different AIs to race, and some of them will fall, some of them will do the track really well, and then the parameters that do the track really well, that's the AI you keep. That's pretty much what's going on, right? So it's not like smart, it's just really sophisticated. It's a really sophisticated algorithm, a compression of information in a very sophisticated way. But this is now the reality where machines are now determining our future. For those who have seen the movie WALL-E, this is pretty much what's going on now. Even at the level of war, everything is being automated. War is even being automated. And eventually we're just going to sit in front of a screen being entertained by infinite entertainment whilst the machines are executing commands that have been passed by some person a long time ago, and we don't even know what's really going on anymore. That's the fear of where we might end up if we don't pay attention. But the fact that I'm aware of this risk hopefully means that other people are also aware of this risk, and that we won't actually go to this crazy future that we appear to be stumbling toward. Sad part is the pressure of the United States versus China makes it such that we're kind of blinded by this third danger we're creating, because we're just focusing on each other whilst we're creating this potential autonomous thing. There's a show called Blame on Netflix, and it's about a city that is essentially continuously building outwards by these machines. So these machines are continuously building a city outward kind of aimlessly because they've been set in motion in the past, and nobody can stop it pretty much. And that's kind of what I think we're building here without realizing it. Of course, I'm not saying we're there yet. This is version 1. Okay, this is a joke. Okay, this is version 1. This is a toy. But once we actually build machines that are really powerful, okay, once we have really sophisticated algorithms that are really blowing us away, okay, version 20, okay, at that point, if we're still in this mindset where we're allowing these machines to just run amok, what happens then? That's the question I'm asking. So let's hope we wake up and we realize that it's really humans against the machines at some point, and that we have to remain on top and not allow these machines to end up on top. With that being said, am I making sense or am I losing it here? Definitely let me know in the comment section below. Do want to give a special shout out to the Patreons, and if you would like to support this channel, consider becoming a Patreon. Salute, soldier!